I've spoken a couple times about my testimony and where I've been at in life, and some of you guys have heard it. On my comeback, I had come into a men's breakfast, and Pastor Richard and Stan asked me to speak, and I gave a little notion about Mount Hebron, which is in Israel, and it's really important, a water source to not only the city, but the surrounding cities. And I feel like you older gentlemen are my mountain Hebron. You know, I really do. So when I need to be watered, when I need to come and plug back in and get back into life, it was Mount Hebron where I came. And all you older gentlemen, you guys were here for me. And you guys are my example and my mountain. So I grew up in Long Beach, born and raised. And went to school, Grant, North Long Beach, went to school in Hamilton, and went to high school in Jordan, Panther. And it was an interesting time of my life growing up in Long Beach, and my parents really put a lot of love into me. You know, my father was a bus driver, and my mom was a 411 operator. We didn't have the most money, but everything that I needed, they made sure I had, and I'm very grateful for them. I grew up in a Baptist church as a young man. My great-grandfather was a preacher there. He had passed away when I was young, and the church kind of went its way, and my parents left, and we didn't go to church very often, so the foundation of Jesus, you know, stayed at the little children's church songs that I would sing. So I didn't really have this comprehension on the mystery of the Messiah and the reason why he came. So I lived life. I ended up going to school, having lots of friends, end up selling drugs at approximately 13, maybe 12. Didn't start doing them until maybe 14, 15. But there came a point where God came in. And I was all about making money. I was just about supplementing what my parents wanted to give me, but couldn't give me. So I just wanted to live my life. And my parents definitely let me do that. They were not bad parents. But they were so busy in their life and their own personal affairs because they had their own problems that they allowed me just to become a man. And when I would mess up, that's when my dad would grab me by the collar, throw me against the wall, and tell me how much I'm messing up. And, you know, one day, it was 8th grade, and me and Brian Maldonado, some of you guys know who that is. He's one of my best friends. Miriam Maldonado's son. And we were ditching. It was in December. We were like, Christmas break is coming up. Let's just take the month of December off. So we literally would ditch all of December. And then when we went back to school, they quickly called our card, and we were in trouble. But during that little space, I was walking down. What we would do, our routine in the morning would be, he would come to my house, he'd get dropped off by his mom, thinking we're going to go to school. We would go to Circle K, we would steal a pack of GPC cigarettes and buy a hot dog. Hit the bus stop, head on out. Go to his house, stay there until school's over, come back and do our thing. Well, on the way, I met this little old lady named Saul Mumford that I later found out her name. I did not know her name then. She come up to me and Brian. She's like, I remember it vividly. Coming out of Circle K, making a left. There's a little trailer park right there. She caught us right in front of it. And we were on our way to the bus stop. And we prayed. She prayed the sinner's prayer. She gave me a little tract that you guys might have seen that says How to Live Forever. And I didn't think much of it then. I knew Jesus then. Thought I was sincere in it. I threw the tract on the floor. The prayer to me was just an average day. I was actually praying then. I was doing the thing personally, thinking I was plugged in. Brian's looking at this track. He's like, Imperial? Studebaker? No, he said Studebaker. He goes, he's hitting in. He's like, I just think this is my mom's church. I'm like, yeah? He's like, I don't know, though. I don't know. So he's not going to church at this time, but Miriam is an avid goer. And sure enough, you know, we go on about our day, go on about our lives. It was like a couple years later, she ends up getting with this gentleman named James Petty. And we're, you know, doing our thing. At this point, you know, I'm smoking weed, I'm smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and not really a bad person, but I ran the street. I plugged in with all the gangs. I'm plugged in with everything that I shouldn't be plugged in, but on the street was my domain. So, you know, he's talking stern with me. I don't know, many people know James, and I'm going to share something. If it isn't for his personality and the personality that he shared with me as a young man, I would have, in my opinion, never hearkened, because I need somebody to speak stern, but also speak life and also believe and look for miracles. And going on, he caught us one night. And he was just pouring into us. And I struggled with a dream as a young man, which really caused a lot of concern for my parents. However, we pushed through that, and he popped off telling me about my dream. I've never shared this with Brian. I never shared. The only people that knew was my sister and my mom and my dad. And Miriam and my mom were not friends at the time. They knew each other. It's not like no one would ever know this dream. And he gave me a little insight on that, which stirred inside of me. And I called on the name of the Lord that night again. And that stirring was like no other. You know, I'm probably at this time 15, maybe 16, and I'm just stirred. And he's like, you guys got to come to church. And I'm like, okay. We go to church. We end up going to youth. I did a little dinner, met Sean Snyder. We used to call him the comedy kid. And Gloria was running the youth. She put on a Valentine's dinner. I met Sarah. And me and Brian quickly became friends with some of the youth. So going on with my life, a couple Sundays later, he finally got us to go. And I walk through that door, and I see Saul Mumford greeting people at the door. And she says, and this has been 3 years later, 2 years later, and she says, I've been praying for you boys ever since the day that I met you on the streets of North Long Beach. Which at that point blew my mind. Because number one, I'm tripping out that I recognize her. You know, but more importantly, I'm tripping out the fact that she's telling me she's been praying for me. And I'm like, wow, praying for me? Okay. So I sat down in service. I think Pastor Kay might have said her best sermon that day for me, because it was like this game changer. It was like power. It was like a life experience that I realized I was going down a road. And going on, you know, I dedicated a good portion of my life for the next 8 months to a year as a teenager, witnessing, praying for people on the street. I sat underneath Pastor Mallet. She taught me deliverance. She would have me and my two buddies, Manuel and Brian, pre-pray the deliverance room. I was able to plug into Bible college as a young man. And through that time, my parents are still living their life. I was saved by myself. I brought my parents to Community Chapel. We went to churches. Last church we went to before Community Chapel was the Assembly of God Church on South and Cherry. And sure enough, my perspective of life on how it should be and the way my prayers should be answered took effect. So I know God's in control, but my whole life has fallen apart as a young man, and everything that I've ever known is just dwindling away. My parents are getting a divorce. I'm going up to San Bernardino. I'm coming back to San Bernardino. The whole family is split. My sister is old. She was, 7 years older than me. So she was making her own choices. I was approximately 12 when they told me they were separating. I was probably 17, 16 when they actually got divorced. And my sister's making her own choices. And I'm just praying. And I'm in this mode of believing in miracles at this point, right? And I'm in this mode that whatever I ask God, He's going to do. Which is true. He will absolutely do what you want, but maybe not the way you want it. And that's exactly what was happening. So I came to a point where if God ain't for me, then He must be against me. I don't get it. I've done this, I've done that. But what I've learned as an older man, it's not about what we've done. I live here today in front of you guys under grace and mercy. So at that point, I did my thing. Went right back into the game. Everybody remembers me. Everybody knows who I am. I've not only sold them drugs, but I've given them Jesus. And now I'm back to collecting money and doing other things in the neighborhood. And you know what? I ran amok for about 10 years. And not really caring too much about what I was taught, what was poured into me, what type of tools I was given, until I started thinking, after I had my first child at 19, I was still living my life and still very selfish. Didn't want to be with her mother, and I wanted to live my own life. Really much wanted to be there for my child. I was there at a distance. I would always show up, but I would be gone just as quick. So it came to a point where my sister passed away, and it was really hard for me. And I thought that was another notion of God just taking a stab at me. And it came to a point where later on, living my life, doing what I'm doing, that God spoke to me in my room. He gave me a little love. And that revelation gave me a fact that it's not me. It's not me. It's not my life. It's not the choices that my parents make. It's not the issue with my sister. It's not the choices that I'm making. It's me realizing that God just loves me. God just loves me. Yeah, it was like a revelation of, Jesse, your life. Yeah, okay, but I love you. And I started telling this to Jen. Most of you guys know my wife. At that time, we were, dating. And I've known Jen for a long time, so I'm able to really share with her. She's like, well, God is real. I'm glad. We live our lives and we go on. But how many of you know that God will continue to work and finish His work?
Yes. Amen. Finish it.
So at a point in my life growing up, I said, we got to get back to church. So we started going back to church, going to this church, going to that church, living our life. And me and Jen are ready to get married. And I said, hey, we got to get to church to get married. So we go to Pastor K. We didn't have a church, With open arms, she goes, honey, this is your church. What are you talking about? Let's get you guys married. We go through the motions. And it was like this day when we didn't go to community chapel right away. We were going to Calvary Chapel. And it was like this day where God said, go to North Long Beach. I opened up this Bible, and I'm in Sunset Beach, by the way. I'm in Sunset Beach at a Calvary Chapel over there at the Red Onion. And it says North Long Beach, Calvary Chapel, North Long Beach. So we ended up going to North Long Beach. And then one day, one Easter, we were leaving the church, and we were doing the early morning service, and Elaine was with us, my oldest daughter. She goes, Dad, how come we just can't go to our church? She knows that church to be my church, her mom's church, her grandparents' church. And I said, all right, it's Easter, let's go. Let's go double service it, let's go. And you know what? We haven't left since. We came back the following Sunday, came back the following Sunday, came back the following Sunday. That was it. But you know what? That wasn't just it. Now that I'm here in my life, God has revealed so much to me on the mystery of the Messiah, the mystery of Christ. There's so much more depth than what we think on Him walking this earth for 33 and a half years. That was a very important time in human history for them to have an exit or a relationship with God. An exit from death, eternal death, and a relationship with an eternal God, given life everlasting. And, I just want to say this because I don't want to get into too many tears here, because you got to understand, this is something so deep inside that I never knew that would happen. I get revelation, I read, I get revelation, I read, I get revelation, I read, and I get revelation. I ask questions. I have doubts. I look for answers. I walk. And there's such a personal level that God has shown me that it's the complete opposite of my mind frame when I was a kid. When things weren't working out, I said, oh, God's not for me, He must be against me. I did my own thing. At that point, guys, it got pretty crazy, because if it ain't one side, it's the next. And if you're running for the devil, it becomes pretty crazy. And I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but I chose to live the life of darkness. I'm already a child that knew the difference between light and darkness, so I chose darkness. And for Him to bring me back, after choosing darkness, after knowing the light, is super emotional for me, because when I say I'm here for grace and mercy, you got to understand that is literally the very truth. It's grace and it's mercy. It's favor that I'm not deserved, and it's definitely a love that is given because He wants to give it. The aspect of me being able to walk into the house of God, to praise, to feel His presence is one thing. We can all get emotional through music. But for Him to have a personal relationship with me, bring me into knowledge, bring me into His will, help me understand what He wants in my life and for those around me, is a complete turnaround. And I don't deserve it whatsoever. But when I sit and I think, you want to talk about Jesus? Let's talk about Jesus. At any given moment, person walks down the street, they ask me where the bus stop is, I'm ready to present Christ. I'm ready to present, well, what are you looking for? You only got to look up. Where are you trying to go? I understand you might have an appointment, but today you got an appointment with God. He's here meeting you here at the street. So now it comes a point where now I get to share. And at this point in my life, I stand as a humble individual, ready to love, ready to care. It's a complete opposite of what I once felt when I didn't care. And I was very angry. And I made a lot of decisions on selfish ambition. Now, it's complete opposite. Now I'm selfless as much as possible. Got a couple more girls. All my girls keep me as innocent as possible. And you know what? I am so happy. I might not have everything in the world. And things will happen. I have stress at work. It's a never-ending story. But now, instead of thinking, if God isn't for me, he must be against me. Now I'm thinking, no. God is for me. And all things will work together for good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose and will. And that's really what it comes down to, guys. I can never do anything. It's the purpose of God's will. He will execute that will in any way, fashion, or form. And I am so grateful for him to put me in that position of in his will. So I just want to thank God for his grace, his mercy. There's been prophecy laid over my life that has been fulfilled, and there's been prophecy in my life that I'm waiting to be fulfilled. And that's an exciting journey. So I just want to ask a question, to all you guys. Do you understand that you're in God's will? I started this with sharing with you how important it is for you older men to be here and be a life source. That is God's will. You are in God's will. But when you think about it and you ask yourself that, give him praise. Give him thanks. Because by grace and mercy, you guys are a part of his will. And by grace and mercy, you guys have been able to pour into me. And you know what? I thank God for that. I thank God for that. I thank God for a new heart. Thank God for a new thought life, new thought pattern. Thank God for all of his provisions. But I thank God for him giving me a word to be able to share with somebody else. Because at the end of the day, it's the blood of the Lamb and our testimony. And in that testimony is his fingerprints written all over it. And in the blood of the Lamb, that's just the beginning of the mystery. His fingerprints are written all over it. That's just the beginning of the mystery. That's just the beginning to where it allows you to understand the mystery. The blood of the Lamb is where it starts for us. So I just want to encourage everybody this morning, grab a hold of a Bible. Get sanctified. Wash yourselves in the Word. I was blessed because I had certain people pour that into me. When I was a young man, the first book I read was Ezekiel. I didn't know what the heck I was reading. I'm like, what is going on here? I quickly went to Proverbs and I said, no, you know what? I'm going to ask for wisdom instead. Proverbs, I can understand a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts. Ezekiel gets a little deep. And that was just the beginning. Now, I'm in the Word every day. It speaks to me every day. Sanctified, washed. And, I just want to encourage people, wash, get washed, sanctify yourself, grab a Bible, read the Word. And that way, when it comes point, you're able to express that Word to someone else. All right? So I just want to thank everybody here, and I want to thank God for his grace and his mercy. That's my story in a nutshell. There's so much more to it, and you'll probably catch it over a lifetime. So I'm here if you guys ever want to talk. Say what's up. Any questions? Let me know, because I'll be asking you questions.
Thank you.